Hey guys, it's Abby from WillBujoFor.Treats, and I'm back again today with my January bullet journal setup. I know it's a bit late, but I hope you guys enjoy. So here you can see I'm using some masking liquid. If you guys have never heard of it, it's this liquid that you can add to your watercolor paintings. It's supposed to protect what's underneath. Afterwards, you just use that little rubber eraser to kind of scrape it off, and your design underneath will be watercolor free. If you're interested to take a look at the product, I'll go ahead and link it in my Amazon storefront down below. Just an FYI, all of those links down below are Amazon affiliate links, so if you click on them and purchase it, I happen to get a small commission back at no extra cost to you. So if you want to help your girl out, go ahead and check out those links. So you can see here that I went ahead and got started with the galaxy background to my cover page for January. I didn't really know what I was doing here. I kind of winged it and kind of learned along the way, if that makes any sense. I found what method worked best for me was that I went in with a lot of gouache at first and then took that pigment off with either a wet paper towel or a water saturated brush later on to pick up that pigment afterwards. Next, you'll see I am going in with that rubber eraser and taking off that masking liquid, and my moon underneath is nice and saved below. Now, if you know a less messy method for adding stars to your galaxy paintings, let me know in the comments down below, guys, because this definitely left water spouts all over my bullet journal background. Eventually, I decided to go in with my Posca paint marker just to add a little bit more refined stars and a little bit more of a pattern or cohesiveness to the star design. I think it turned out quite well. Now, what did not turn out so well was this quote page. I thought it would be cool to add a geometric design to the galaxy aspect, but it didn't turn out the way I wanted. So I definitely cut that out later on, but I definitely loved the way that the heat gave the gouache texture when I was trying to dry it on the paper. You'll see that my moon has a little bit of like this crusting or like crater look to it. It was pretty cool. But moving on, I'm going to go ahead and create the actual page of my January cover. This I'm using a full sheet of vellum. You guys know I am obsessed, but I'm going to go ahead and tape that in with just some regular Scotch tape. On the left-hand side, I'm going to add in my quote page on another piece of vellum and just tape that right over top, and then go in with some stamps. The quote says fresh energy and new opportunities. I thought this was very fitting for, January and the new year. I'm really excited about everything to come, and I think there are definitely a lot of new opportunities in store. To finish up the cover page, I went ahead and cut out the white portions underneath the mountains to give it a little bit clearer of a look. And then I also went in with some of my stamps to simply put January on the cover. One really important thing I forgot to mention when working with stamps and when working with vellum paper is make sure you guys dry what you're stamping and whatever you're writing on top of your vellum paper. I had to redo this, not gonna lie, because I kept smudging it with my hand. Don't be like me, dry your stuff. The next page in my January setup is my calendar page. Calendars are definitely one of my favorite things to make in any monthly setup. So for this one, I definitely wanted to be a little bit more simple or minimalistic just because I have a lot going on in my theme already, so I wanted to kind of balance that out. It was definitely inspired by the Plant-Based Bride. If you guys haven't heard of her channel, I'll go ahead and link it down below. She has some wonderful ideas, so definitely be sure to check that out. My theme was also pretty based off of, if I didn't already mention, forest culture design. I'll go ahead and link that Instagram down below. Plenty of beautiful art to check out, so be sure you guys check out both of those Instagrams. Also, if you guys hear some random screams in the background of my voiceovers, it happens to be my boyfriend playing some video games, so ignore that. Now, if you guys are like me and pre-plan all of your spreads using pencil, this next little gadget will be amazing for you. It's a mini handheld vacuum. I use it to suck up all of the eraser dust after I erase the pencil marks that I used as a guide to create my layout. If you're interested, go ahead and check my Amazon links below. It's cute, small, and USB chargeable. It used to be a luxury item for me, but I definitely can say that it's moved towards my must-have bullet journaling items. The next go-to spread for me in my monthly setups are always my brain dump pages. Now, I set this up every month, but again, it's kind of one of those spreads where it's a hit or miss for me. Some months I really use it, and other months I barely touch it. But either way, I think it's good to have just in case there's something I needed to jot down and I didn't create space for it in my weeklies. Always a nice contingency plan and always fun to make. To start setting up for my one line a day spread, I went ahead and pre-cut a piece of Canson branded watercolor paper the same size as my A5 bullet journal pages. Pre-wetting the edges where I wanted the galaxy painting to go helped me to move around the color more. You'll see my video is a little bit choppy because I'm still getting the hang of creating galaxy watercolor designs, so this setup took me a little longer than I anticipated. So I cut around to kind of speed things up for you all. So now that I'm happy with the way the border turned out, I'm going to set this aside to paste in my journal later, and move on to my habit tracker for the month. This month, I'm reverting back to an old habit tracker from my 2020 April setup. If you're interested, I'll go ahead and link that in the card above. I think I have a flip through video on my YouTube channel. But this setup for my habit tracker is a vertical tracker utilizing a dot system. Right now, I'm just painting a scene on the watercolor paper that will be pasted into my journal. Then I plan to cut a piece of vellum paper and stamp on the first letter of each habit I'm tracking at the top. Now, I know many of you are thinking that this is a dark background. How am I going to see my dots? Well, I think it'll work out if I use my white Posca paint pen, or at least I hope it'll work out. I guess we'll find out later this month. So some of you guys may have been wondering why I saved the white gouache stars for the very last aspect of setting up these galaxy-like spreads, and that's just because gouache tends to dry quickly, or at least I found them to dry quickly, so I saved the white for last. That way when I do wet it, I can get it all done at once as opposed to having to re-wet it every single time. Now to finish my one line a day setup, I'm using my Archer and Olive notepad and white dotted grid pages to paste over top of the galaxy. That way, I have lined pages as a guide for writing my entries. I love how clean this spread turned out, guys. The tear out pages also make it so easy to use. I love that I don't have to rip out pages from my old journals anymore. Definitely a must-have item if you feel like splurging on some bullet journal supplies. Now this is where all the fun begins, guys. Rewatching the creation of this full galaxy spread was pretty cool, because I was pretty doubtful on how it would turn out. After some trial and error in the other spreads, I think I finally nailed down the technique, or at least a method that worked for me. Basically, I slapped on a bunch of blue or indigo gouache down and used a wet paper towel to remove the excess pigment in certain places. When creating this kind of look, I found it really helpful to work in layers, meaning I would dry a layer before re-wetting it. If I realized I took too much pigment out, I would go back in with a water-saturated brush to move around the previously laid down pigment. This also helped create a more blended look to avoid some harsh lines in my galaxy. All in all, this scene was really fun to make, and I hope to try more spreads like this in the future. My inspiration for this spread also initially came from @ForestCulture Design, and I combined it with Plant Based Bride's December idea of having a 2-page scene as a background for her monthly tabs. I'll link both of those awesome creators down below. Be sure to check out their stuff. also wanted to note that my January setup has 2 of these scenic pages for backgrounds for my monthly tabs, but I decided to only include the making of one of them since the process was basically the same. And my video was already pretty long. We're almost to the end of this setup, guys. I promise the end is near. And last but not least, we are finally setting up my first weekly of my monthly setup. By this point in setting up my journal, I was ready to shell out this little mini scene because I felt like a pro. Just kidding. More like I don't know why I always choose complicated setups for my monthly themes when I always swear I'm going to go back to a minimalist setup because all of this is just so extra. But for this month, I am trying a new weekly setup. I keep this really minimal with lots of open space for daily tasks and diary blurbs all in one. I also, of course, had to include a mini calendar. At the end of creating this, I felt like I had done too much with the mini mountains scene at the top. So for my second weekly setup, I decided to try the same setup but with a different decoration. I actually filmed that in another video and will post that to YouTube later on, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. I would love to hear your thoughts on a comparison of which you liked more and why. After finishing my weekly setup, I just went ahead and painted in my ombre tabs to finish up my January theme. Alright, well if you're still watching, you made it, guys! Let's go ahead and jump right into the final flip through. There you have it, my complete January setup for 2021. If you stuck with me to the end of this video, thank you for watching. If you liked this content and want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. I have a second video coming out shortly about the weekly spread setups I have for the rest of January, so be on the lookout. See you in the next video, guys.